Hey, this is Zachlog the Great. Andrew Klavan is not a Christian. This is not the kind of thing I say often or lightly. Even when someone holds beliefs that do not appear to fit with Christianity at all, if they say they're Christian, I will usually say, your beliefs do not appear to match with Christianity, but God knows your heart, not me. But I will say, and will explain why, that Andrew Klavan is not a Christian. If you're unfamiliar with him, Klavan is a political/cultural commentator for the Daily Wire. He is ethnically Jewish and professes to have converted from atheism to Christianity in the early 2000s. He even wrote a book about his conversion titled The Great Good Thing. But I do not believe he is a Christian, and this is not simply about him personally, or I wouldn't bother. There is a word in Spanish, Marrano. This word means a Jew who claimed to convert to Christianity, but continued practicing their Jewish faith in secret. A falsely converted Jew. Curiously, I'm not aware of a word for a falsely converted Muslim or Hindu or anyone else. It seems only Jews were a sufficient problem to merit a word of their own. Now, you may ask why it matters and why the Spanish would have such a word. It matters because, true or not, it was believed that the Jews betrayed Christian cities to the invading Muslims, which cost the Christians an enormous amount of time and blood to reconquer. After the Christians reconquered Spain, they were concerned that Jews might engage in subversion against them. You might say this is unfair, but I'd suggest you look at the history of communist traitors in the United States, for instance. So, why do I class Andrew Klavan among the Marranos? There are a few reasons, so let's get started. First, by his own admission, sadly I no longer know where he said this, he converted to the most liberal, sexually permissive denomination he found. Now, this doesn't prove much on its own, but it is troubling. Wouldn't a serious convert throw himself into the faith as hard as he can, flee the world as far as he could? I'm going to be Christian, but the kind of Christianity which demands the least reform. When publicly asked whether he witnessed to Ben Shapiro, Jewish, about becoming Christian, Klavan responded with a joke where he once saw Shapiro accidentally eat non-kosher food and said, "Well, since you're not Jewish anymore, maybe you should become a Christian." Again, by itself, this proves nothing, but he considers witnessing to others about Christ subject matter for a joke. Now, if confronted myself, I would have to admit I don't do this well at all. But I would say this sincerely and to my own shame. I would not try to deflect the question with a joke. Again, this by itself proves nothing, but troubling. The next point is not so obvious. It only emerges if you've listened to a good bit of what he says with your antenna up. He often subtly runs down white people, and he never misses an opportunity to praise Jewish people. Do not get me wrong. I am not saying only white people are or can be Christians. I am not saying that historically only white people were Christians. But the fact is that over most of the past 2,000 years, Christian was nearly synonymous with European, so much so that Christendom was functionally a term for Europe. So, from a historic tribalist perspective, demeaning white people is tantamount to demeaning Christians. For that matter, imagine a Muslim who converted to Christianity, but afterwards loved to talk about how great Muslims are and all the wonderful things Muslims have done in the world. It might make you suspicious about the sincerity of his conversion. But all of this is merely suspicious. Even add it all together, it's hardly enough to make accusations about the sincerity of a man's faith. Not if you take seriously Jesus' warning about being judged by the standards you use for others. The final nail in the coffin for me was last year during the whole argument started by Candace Owens leaving the Daily Wire. Of course, Andrew Klavan condemned the phrase, "Christ is King," being used in an anti-Semitic fashion. Why that would be anti-Semitic is another question, and may be worth a separate video. And when asked again about trying to bring Ben Shapiro to Christianity, he released a video explaining why he's not, including, among other things, that if Shapiro became a Christian, it would disrupt his family and his position of influence. Oh no! Not cause conflict in the family. Not require a man to sacrifice money and power. I wonder if Jesus has anything to say about that. Let's see. If anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. Luke 14:26. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Matthew 10:37. If you want to be perfect, go, sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me. Matthew 19:21. So, Jesus says if that's the choice, you choose him over family. You choose him over wealth and power. Andrew Klavan, in that statement, was directly contradicting the words of Christ. I see no other way to read this. The man is not a Christian. And if this were an issue of just one man, it might not be worth talking about. But there are many so-called Christians in the world today who are willfully perverting and corrupting the faith. A great many of them are distant cousins of Klavan. Surely just a coincidence. Jesus warned us to be on our guard against false teachers. In fact, Matthew chapter 7 is where the phrase, "a wolf in sheep's clothing," comes from. And as best as I can tell, over the past 100 years or so, Christians' worst failure of following Jesus' commands is our failure to be on guard against these false teachers. We cannot simply accept surface features. We cannot just take the word of some men as to their true intentions. And Andrew Klavan is not a Christian. God be with you.